Chapter 22, Kin's Domain Declaration. Declaration of my Kin's Domain, a draft. I, a citizen of the Russian Federation, have familiarized myself with the philosophy of a way of life that has been set forth in fictional form in the Ringing Cedars of Russia book series. The idea of creating a Kin's Domain has inspired me to take action. I have acquired a plot of land in a deserted spot out in the country, 1 hectare in size, with the goal of establishing a more perfected dwelling land for my family and my descendants, and in memory of our ancestors. I have given the spot the name, here in the book it says Family Homestead, but throughout the entire series we've been calling it Kin's Domain, so I'm going to stick with that. On the land I acquired, I have laid out a garden, dug a pond where fish will breed, and established several families of bees. I cultivate berries and vegetables. I plan to fertilize the land using solely natural and native means of fertilization. I believe that it will be a positive development if a large number of families who have the skills and desire to work the land and who establish their daily lives on Kin's Domains located around large and small cities are able to provide urban populations with a large quantity of ecologically pure vegetable produce and improve ecological conditions in the provinces. I consider it unacceptable that tens of millions of hectares of land in our country are not cultivated and are overgrown with tall weeds. At the same time as we purchase 60% of our food products from foreign countries, and in that addition, these products are often of low quality and even harmful to humans, especially children. I believe that this situation not only threatens the safety of food in our country, but also destroys the populaces living within its territories. I believe that under such conditions, it is counterproductive to accuse the government or anyone else of having made this or that mistake. Our entire society has made mistakes, not only our country's society. As a result, the societies of many countries stand on the brink of social disruptions. In the current situation, it is essential for each person to think about what concrete steps he personally can take in the very near future to bring about positive changes. The example of countries that have placed their bets on farm economy shows the ineffectiveness and even destructive nature of this choice. Farmers who focus on earning a profit from growing agricultural products enter into a competitive battle with each other. In order to prevail, they must use pesticides and herbicides and raise harmful genetically modified crops, and by doing this, they endanger the lives of people of entire states. On the family homestead, a family lives and grows produce to meet its own needs and the needs of its relatives who live in the cities, or on a Kin's Domain. The family lives and grows produce to meet its own needs and the needs of its relatives who live in the cities. Thus, a family living on a Kin's Domain has a fundamentally different relationship with the land. The surplus of produce from the homesteads will differ from all the other produce that appear on the shelves of the city stores in its beneficial nature. The intensifying worldwide economic crisis creates the threat of social disorder in many countries. If we are to come out of this crisis, we must have a fundamentally new philosophy of a family way of life, one that people will understand. And such a philosophy has been set forth in the Ringing Cedars of Russia book series. I have accepted its fundamental concepts, and they have inspired me to take the actions laid out above. More than 100 families in which children are being born and raised in a more perfected ecological setting, have acquired 1 hectare of land and are already building their own family homesteads alongside my own family homestead. Practice has shown that they are doing so not because of some infusion of capital, but because of this philosophy. I'm aware that thanks to this philosophy, tens of thousands of families in various regions of Russia, Ukraine, and Belarus are already building their Kin's Domains. Millions of families are planning to do so as a more favorable legislative basis for this is established. as soon as a more favorable legislative basis is established. Many families are planning to become small business owners and produce agricultural products. I fully support efforts by the government and the President of Russia Federation to create favorable conditions for building small houses outside the cities, and also to make lands designated for agricultural use available for the construction of small houses, to allocate each family a plot of land. I believe that each plot should be not less than 1 hectare in size, since on a smaller plot it's impossible to establish a comparably perfected and self-sustaining ecosystem and small-scale agriculture. If families are not allocated a large enough plot of land, the settlements around the cities will turn into consumers instead of producers, which will only exacerbate the food, ecological, and social situation of the country. I consider it essential for us to urgently ask the government and the President of the Russian Federation to speed up their work in this direction and adopt the necessary law regarding Kin's domains. I appeal to the President and Congress of the United States of America, to the UN, and to the heads of all states who have vested interest in the flowering of the peoples living in them, and recommend that they examine and embrace the idea that creating Kin's domains is the most effective plan for enabling countries to come out of the global economic crisis, to avert the approaching ecological catastrophe, and to avoid a food crisis. A significant portion of the peoples of Russia see the Kin's domain plan as a national idea. May it become an international national idea, and may our countries compete with each other to make the beautiful future a reality. If the governments of various countries sincerely understand this idea, publicize it, and support it, then the depression that is advancing on us can be stopped. An inspired, constructive international process will begin. The actions of thousands of Russian families have already proven the positive influence of the Kin's Domains plan. More than 1,500 Russian families who have already begun building their own Kin's Domains have signed declarations like this one. We continue to collect signatures. I wish all like-minded people success and inspiration as they creatively build a beautiful environment where their families can live in various countries and in the world as a whole. Signature of the founders of the family homestead. With the passage of time, this document, which has already taken on a life of its own, began to give rise in me an ever-growing feeling of significance. I was getting the feeling that it's not a passport, a diploma, or any awards that constitute a person's most important documents, but precisely this kind of declaration. Returning in my mind to this document again and again, I kept trying to understand why I was having these feelings. The text and language might vary, but they aren't what's most important here. What's important is the essence. I read the declaration to Anastasia, told her about my feelings, and asked, "What do you think, Anastasia? Why do these feelings arise, and not only in me? I've spoken with many people, and they also experience the feeling that the declaration is very significant, but no one can explain why this happens. Why is it?" You see, Vladimir, the feeling that this document is significant immediately arose in me also. But like you and these others, what about it makes me feel that way? I am unable to explain that immediately. Perhaps we need to ponder it a bit together? Perhaps, but I've already pondered it a great deal. The feeling that it's significant remains, but I still haven't understood why that is. Suddenly, Anastasia drew herself up somehow and began to shine. She began speaking, pronouncing each syllable distinctly, just the way she always did when she was trying to emphasize something significant. Vladimir, I think I am beginning to understand where its great significance is. Look, when the Creator was creating the earthly world, before the great creation, he first gave voice to his intention. He imparted it to all the entities of the universe. And when they asked, "What is it you so fervently desire?" he replied, "Co-creation and joy for all who behold it." But can it really be so important to impart your intentions to everyone? Of course, it is very important, for imparting it to all means, above all, imparting it to yourself as well. It means comprehending what is taking place and believing in it yourself. Besides, having declared your intentions in words, you are already materializing them. By imparting them to all, you can call upon them to join you in co-creation. Why do I need to call upon everybody? I mean, somebody might laugh at me or oppose me or be indifferent. Derision, opposition, and indifference will be participants in the co-creation from the other side. They are needed to fill out this creation, within which you will bring everything into balance. I'm feeling excitement inside, Anastasia. Where's that coming from? Vladimir, I too feel excited. This document has appeared as a herald of a new era on the earth. The aspirations of the people who stand behind it are holding within them a great realization. For thousands of years, people lived without determining their own lives. What were they striving for and why? What should the new generations carry forth? Should they bear in mind where those paths went wrong? Which paths? Amidst the bustle of life, women gave birth to children, but they offered no goals in life to those they bore. The children knew not what they were to carry forward. And then they would die, and the earthly civilizations, having lived out their empty lives, and then they would die, the earthly civilizations, having lived out their empty lives. Only pottery shards remained of them, and arrowheads. The children would heed others' opinions of their parents. And what your grandfather wanted of life, Vladimir, he did not impart this to your father and mother in words, nor did they impart that to you in words. You are their continuation. Tell me, what kind of continuation did they want in life? I don't know. I can only imagine. You can imagine whatever you might like, but you know for sure that they did not impart it, their life's aspiration. Of course they didn't, nor do all the other people I know. For the first time in perhaps billions of years, as if awakening at dawn, a man has said, "I have an aspiration. I will begin my creation, and my generations will live in a promised land around them, and they will be perfect." And they will perfect the promised land around them. Of course, they will be more perfected than I, but I will begin it all, and a little part of me will live on in my descendants. Footnote. The original Russian phrase, Srida Abitovanaya, this phrase echoes the phrase dwelling land and is also meant to echo the biblical phrase promised land. Thus, that word is often translated as habitat. I chose to translate it here as the land around you, so as to retain the link to both the promised land and the word land and the phrase dwelling land. You can cite many examples of how that which we do not impart in words dies along with the physical body. A man was thinking about how he might improve for his descendants the land where he lived, and he planted a cedar tree on his plot. Before long, the man died. 29 years passed, and the tree grew into a beautiful, spreading cedar, 15 meters tall. Within but a year, it would have borne marvelous healing fruit, but people, the children of the man who had planted it, cut it down. They thought, "Why do we need this tree here? It casts a shadow over a part of our plot, and its shade is keeping the tomatoes and cucumbers from growing in their beds." And they cut down the spreading cedar and they cut it down precisely because the man had not given voice to his intentions. Genghis Khan conquered nearly half the world and brought Russia, India, China, and Palestine together beneath his rule so that there would be no war. He built roads, lowered taxes, and honored the traditions and cultures of various people, but he himself lived not in the palaces he seized, but in a yurt. He sought to bring wise men from all over the world to him. Together with these wise men, he talked about how they could go about making people happy, and how to help everyone come to know eternity and immortality of peoples. Of all conquerors of the earth, his empire endured the longest. He knew something. He attained and displayed it, but the empire collapsed all the same. And Genghis Khan has come down to us through the ages as just a conqueror. Who from among those alive today is able to say what his true intentions were? He did not give voice to them. Well, perhaps they were just destroyed or are preserved in scrolls somewhere now. Intentions should be preserved not only in scrolls, but in the hearts of people. Genghis Khan was not able to give voice to them so that they would be passed from generation to generation through the ages. Those are striking examples. It's amazing. Why, for millions of years, didn't people attach any particular importance to the need to give voice to their lives? Now I'm thinking the same thing, that this document presages a new era. Presages. Tell me, Anastasia, how will you give voice to your aspirations, both before people and yourself? All of my aspirations are already laid out in your books, Vladimir. If I were to add anything else specific, I would say, I will gather together the best sounds from the whole universe and will embed them into combinations of letters and into musical notes. I will ask today's poets, you, Vladimir, and the bards to give voice to them. A great many people will sense them with their souls. Let people express them in a language they understand. Let them model the dawn of the earth and its beautiful flowering. And when the melodies of man's worthy land embrace the entire earth, then I, amongst our kind neighbors, will help our grandchildren create their homesteads, and all the while, I will not forget my kin's domain, my family space. But what should I say to myself, and how should I voice my own declaration before... Oh, this is Vladimir talking now. But what should I say to myself, and how should I voice my own declaration before people? Each person needs to consider that on his own. Yes, of course, each person on his own. Even this draft I already have resonates with me. I'll think on my own about what I can add to it to make it my own. And I ask all the readers to consider doing that too. This document is essential. It's an important missive from the founders of a kin's domain to the future generations of their family line. It's a directive that comes from the people and goes to those at all levels of power, a communication with them. It will be a good thing if each family keeps a beautifully designed document like this, like a kind of relic, alongside the family book of the kin's domain's founders, or those who intend to found one. A person will read it with awe and gratitude in his kin's domain's beautiful garden even 100 years later, and he'll read it and recall the founder. And another person 100 years later, a person who has lost his way in life's whirlwind, will suddenly come across it as he's looking through his parents' old things, and will read about their unfulfilled intentions, and that person will have the burning desire to make them a reality. And I think it would also be useful to send this kind of document to each member of local governments personally, and to the UN. Similarly, I consider it essential to establish a yearly scientific and practical conference called Kin's Domains of the Future, under the auspices of the UN.